I'd like to introduce our next program called Exercise Research Empowers Informed Decisions. Our presenters are Joy Cochran and Heather Fortine. Sorry, Heather. Joy is owner of Joy Explorations and the clinical evidence specialist for urban polling. Joy's passion is to empower clients, specifically older adults and those with neurologic conditions, to play, explore, and to adventure and promote healthier, happier, more fulfilling lives. She's a credentialed balance and falls professional and certified exercise expert for the aging adult through the Geriatric Academy of American Physical Therapy Association, and holds certification specific to treating Parkinson's disease in power moves, LSVT big, rock steady boxing, and urban polling master trainer. Heather is a board-certified clinical specialist in neurologic physical therapy and a Parkinson's Foundation PT faculty scholar. She currently serves on the education committee for the Movement Disorder Society Pan American section. She teaches rehabilitation science at Concordia University. She also leads an exercise program for people with Parkinson's disease at a local YMCA. Please give a warm welcome to Joy and Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is wonderful to be here today. I've been able to meet some people that I know from the Cedar Grove Parkinson's disease support group. So hello to my friends out there. It's a joy to be here today and a bigger joy to be up here with Joy. Let's give her she's famous around here. So it has been wonderful to get to know people, and I'm just really feel very blessed to be here today. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about neuroplasticity. So today we're talking about exercise research empowers informed decisions, and kind of part of the background of that is the why. And so the why is we can change our brains. Our brains can adapt, and one of the big ways we can do that is through exercise. So that's kind of the goal of this. We all got to get moving, and we got to do some exercise, so thank you, Susan, for leading that dance. That was absolutely wonderful, and by doing that dance, we actually were practicing some of the things we're going to be talking about today in our presentation. So after I talk about neuroplasticity, I'm going to hand it over to Joy, and she will finish up talking about how do we exercise in a way that gives us the biggest bang for our buck. And then we're going to also talk a little bit about tips for success, how to kind of overcome some barriers that people might have in making exercise part of their daily lives. So I'm going to start with just a little bit about Parkinson's disease. I think you all know this, but it's just important to kind of have this in the background as we talk about neuroplasticity. So Parkinson's disease is caused from a death of the neurons that produce dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It allows our neurons to talk to one another, and that allows our brain to produce movement. It makes our emotions. It helps us think. It kind of runs everything. But also dopamine impacts the rest of our body as well. It's a peripheral hormone, and so not only does it affect our central nervous system, like our balance and gait, our memory, emotions, but it also affects different parts of the body as well, like kidneys, your pancreas, your lungs, and your blood vessels. And that's why Parkinson's disease isn't just about movement. There's a lot of non-motor symptoms, and part of that is because of the change in dopamine available in the body. However, the point of this talk is to talk about the hope that our brains are designed to adapt, and that's where neuroplasticity comes in. So all of us are born with a number of neurons, and we don't make neurons like other cells. If a neuron dies, it can't be replaced. However, our brains can adapt, and they use neuroplasticity. And so the definition of that is the ability of the nervous system to make changes in activity to respond to intrinsic and extrinsic stimuli. That means things inside our body and outside in our environment, and that the brain will reorganize, and it will change its function. It will adapt to the surroundings and to the challenges that it has. So, oops, wrong. Here. So,
One more.
Neurons adapt. We make new connections with neurons, and part of that is that a neuron will make new connections and talk to the neurons around it, and then it will also speed up that communication and connection between other neurons. So we're kind of creating new pathways in the brain, and we're trying to make those more and more efficient. Neuroplasticity is something that occurs constantly. So it can be positive, and that's where exercise comes in. And it comes with practice. And I think that's something that was important when we were dancing, right? Like showing up is important. Trying is important. Practice is important. Practice is what makes neuroplasticity happen. If we don't participate, if we don't move, then our brain is going to learn to be more inactive, and some of those skills that we have, we will lose. And so one of the key kind of phrases I like to use when talking about neuroplasticity is neurons that fire together, wire together. If you use it, you'll keep it. If you don't, you'll lose it. So we want to keep moving, keep practicing, keep trying, and that's going to help your brains adapt and be as functional as they can. We constantly are learning throughout our life, and so the activity and the environment that we're in are really important for that, to help create this positive environment for the brain. And experience, which is another code word for practice, helps to direct changes in our memory, but also in our behavior and our movement. And so we're really trying to focus on how can we positively promote neuroplasticity. And one of the ways we can do that is through exercise. Other things that are important to create that scenario within our body that kind of has the biggest bang for our buck is having good sleep. So practicing good sleep hygiene and really trying to promote sleep, trying to avoid chronic stress, or kind of find some ways to reduce some stressors in your life, and then good nutrition. That's something we all can improve, I think. But sugar and high fat can increase inflammation, and inflammation can decrease our body's ability. So it's really important to get good nutrition. So some of the principles of neuroplasticity that we're going to talk about today, especially Joy later in our presentation, are these: intensity, repetition, progression, meaningful, specific, challenging, complexity. I want to just take a break right here, and I want you to think about that dance that we just did a few minutes ago, and try to think about how many of these principles were incorporated into that dance. So you can talk to your neighbor if you want. Can you think of one or two things that we did in that dance that would have helped with neuroplasticity? I heard intensity, good. Repetition. It was a challenge, and it was complex, right? So throughout the dance, there were different movements. You had to listen to the music and kind of try to keep beat. You were moving bigger than you might normally have moved, that intensity. There was constant change. And so these are all great, like this great kind of setting to help our brain to adapt. And so that's going to promote neuroplasticity. One of the things I want to really focus or kind of highlight is repetition. And so we want to make sure that we're doing our exercises long enough in order to create a necessity for the brain to change and adapt. And so repetition can be something that you count, but it also could be a time as well. So when I think about walking, if you walk for 5 minutes a day, that's probably not going to be enough repetition to result in change. But if you're walking for an hour and a half, well, your body has to adapt to that. Your brain has to adapt, and so you're going to get better at walking. That's that specific. So if you want to get better at walking, you got to walk. If you want to get stronger, you got to have increased resistance, okay? And so whatever you want to get better at, you got to practice. This is, I think, maybe a little bit intimidating of a slide, but I want to point it out anyway. So right here is these red arrows in this pathway. That pathway is a loop in your brain, and that's a dopamine-dependent pathway that uses that basal ganglia and some of those subcortical structures that are important and affected most by Parkinson's disease. But there's this other pathway right here, this blue one. And notice that that one is a goal-based pathway, and that's less dependent on dopamine. And we engage this pathway when we engage the brain. So when we, I can go back here. When we think about intensity and repetition and challenge and meaning and specificity, we're engaging the brain, and we're actually engaging this blue pathway, which is less dependent on dopamine, and so that can improve your motor performance, and it's a pathway that we can strengthen throughout the disease process. So that's another thing we're going to talk about. That's why neuroplasticity is important for Parkinson's, is because we can engage these other pathways that are less dependent on dopamine. This is just kind of a review of what we talked about. So exercise, aerobic exercise, goal-based exercise, that helps strengthen the connections between our neurons. So our neurons are going to talk to each other. We're going to have improved brain health. There's going to be strengthening in those pathways that we talked about, that blue pathway. And that the result is that you're going to move better. You're going to have improved cognition, and you're going to have improved mood and motivation. And so exercise is really the fountain of youth. So for people with Parkinson's, exercise, moderate to vigorous exercise, so that intensity can actually have a neuroprotective effect for some of those neurons that are at risk of dying due to the decrease, the ones that produce dopamine. We can protect those by exercise. We're having improved brain health through exercise. And then that impacted dopamine loss is going to be decreased when people exercise, and function is going to improve. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Joy.
Thank you. Hopefully I know how to do this. Thank you, Heather. I think she did a really good lead-in to dive into the science of how our brain and body respond to exercise. My part is going to take that information and figure out how we can use that in our day-to-day life and make the most impactful exercise routine that we can have. Which one is it? Oh. All right. So, I think it's clear that exercise is important for people with Parkinson's. Actually, exercise can be medicine for people with Parkinson's. And we see a lot in the media, and our healthcare professionals are telling us phrases like this: you need to move more and sit less. Everything counts. Activities of daily living, housework. Pick something that you enjoy and do it, right? Or the best exercise is the one that you will do. Now, those are all true statements. But when my client comes up to me and says, hey, so, I'm really independent. I do all of my activities of daily living, and I clean quite a bit of the house. I do a lot of housework on a weekly basis. And I started my WPA mindful movement class 1 time a week. So why aren't I getting the results like John Cochran here on the top, who started powerlifting 6 years after he was diagnosed, and his symptoms significantly improved? Or why aren't I getting the results that Jimmy Cho did? 13 years after he was diagnosed, he started competing in American Ninja Warrior, and he did so for 5 years. And the answer is because you're not getting all of the information about exercise. Okay? So let's look at it this way. If you were to go into your physician's office, right, and he was going to give you medication in a pill form, he would tell you exactly what that medicine was for, why you are taking it, how much you should take, at what times you should take it, and any other pertinent information that is going to help that medication be most effective. And so today, I am here to try to fill in those blanks of how to make exercise as impactful as it can be and give you the details so that you can make informed decisions. So the good news is that in 2020, the Parkinson's Foundation, in collaboration with 34 Parkinson's experts and the American College of Sports Medicine got together and created recommendations for people with Parkinson's. They did this by looking at the latest research and using their clinical experience, and what they came up with was that people with Parkinson's need 150 minutes a week of moderate to vigorous intensity exercise. And that exercise should be comprised of physical activity, strength training, balance training, and stretching. So anybody out there that knows me knows that I could talk about exercise all day long, right? I love it. But they only gave us a certain amount of time on stage today. So what we are going to do is we are going to just take a few of the key components from each of these different sections so that you guys can take home today how to make your exercise routine the most impactful that it can be. So we are going to start with stretching and how stretching can make life easier. Now the recommendations are 2 to 3 times a week, and daily is the most effective. So I have clients coming to me all the time and they're like, I have so much pain. Maybe that's in their low back, maybe their knees, maybe their hips, and it is impacting my activity. I can't do the things that I want to be doing, okay? But as soon as we start our Parkinson-specific exercise, they come back to me and they're like, you know what? My pain isn't near as bad anymore. And now I'm able to do some of the pastime things that I love to do, such as golfing. And what is happening there is that we are getting our joints lubricated, we are lengthening our muscles, and we're getting rid of some of that rigidity because that movement is helping us to move our body and getting rid of some of that pain. Some of the other ways that I like to do that is I like to suggest that my clients get on the floor and just sit in various different positions. Maybe it's crouching down, maybe it's sitting on the ground, right? Maybe it's lengthening your feet out here. Maybe it's getting all the way onto your belly. But by sitting in those various positions, you are strengthening or you are stretching almost every single joint in your lower extremity, maybe even in your back and in your arms. And those, when you get those lengthened, you're going to be able to start doing some of the things that you want to be doing, such as gardening, getting on the floor to play with your grandkids, maybe getting on the floor to play with your dogs, right? Now, if you can't start with getting on the floor, maybe you modify that and you start doing those kind of positioning on a bed, right? But I love having people get on the ground because that is one of the best strength training exercises that you'll ever be able to do, in addition to stretching, and it reduces your fall risk. Balance. Balance can increase confidence. So the recommendations for balance is 2 to 3 times a week with daily integration. The key being that it needs to be challenging and progressive. And you will start hearing the words that I'm using here are what Heather introduced in her speak in regards to neuroplastic principles. So if we're looking at this scale of 1 to 7, we want to be hitting ranges 4, 5, and 6. We need to be hitting ranges where it feels like we're almost going to fall over and we might actually have to take a step so that we don't fall. Now, I want everybody to be safe, so maybe you start that regimen with your physical therapist, right? But this is what clients come to me and say. They're like, I am so confident when I'm in my house, I'm walking around, right? I can put my hand on the wall, I can put it on the couch, I can put it on the countertop. And I'm like, yeah, that's called surfing. That's what I call surfing. But that's a reaching strategy. What happens when you get out into a big parking lot and you're walking along and you lose your balance? There is nothing for you to reach for, right? So when we're thinking about balance, we need to be thinking about those stepping strategies, right? Every single person loses their balance. Athletes, they're running up and down the court, somebody hits them, their stepping strategy and their reaction strategies are just so fast, we don't notice it, right? So we need to continue to be that athlete and work on stepping strategies. One of the other things I love to work on is standing on one leg, okay? What do we have to do every single day that's on one leg? Anyone? Walk. Absolutely. We're taking nice big steps. At some point, we are always on one leg. What else? Put on your pants. Yes, I love it. You have to put on your pants, right? You have to stand on one leg to get your pants on and to do stairs. But practicing standing on one leg like this, it's okay. But how many times do we just stand on one leg like this? No, we're usually doing multiple things at one time, putting on our pants or walking, right? So it's dynamic. So we need to practice in dynamic ways. So we're playing kickball here. He has to, it's a very complex movement. You're waiting, you're watching the ball coming at you. You have to adjust yourself so that you are in the right spot and time it just perfectly so that you're kicking that ball, right? So we started out using poles. Poles are helping with our balance and our confidence until we get good enough and we have enough repetitions that we don't need those poles anymore. And now we can go out and play kickball without the poles, right? Look at Judy. Look at that big, huge kick that she has right there. That is amazing, right? And that's from practice and getting out there and challenging yourself more than you thought. And on top of that, we're practicing standing on one leg, but it's pretty fun, right? When's the last time you played kickball? All right. The next is strength, and strength can keep you independent. It is recommended that you do 2 to 3 times a week on non-consecutive days. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. You want to be doing it for 30 minutes at a time for 10 to 15 reps. That's working your major muscle groups. And this is why. Oh my goodness. Why does that older lady have a barbell in her hand, right? Because she wants to be able to pick up her groceries. Why in the world would somebody her age carry more than 2 pounds of weight and step up onto something that's uneven so she can carry those groceries in her house, okay? And now she has the barbell over her head. Oh my gosh, that's risky. But she wants to put her groceries away, right? And I would argue that it's riskier for you not to lift weights than it is for you to lift weights, because if you don't lift weights, then you're gonna become weak and you're more at risk for falling, okay? So let's think about what we have to lift every single day in our life. I commonly think of a milk jug, right? That weighs 8.6 pounds. Or what if you're doing laundry? A laundry basket full can be 10 pounds. So if you're only taking your milk and taking it from the fridge and back once a day, or only doing your laundry once a week, you're not gonna be able to keep doing that if you don't do the repetition in between, right? You need to practice at the weights that you wanna be able to do. So what do you have to do in your everyday life? What is the heaviest thing that you have to lift? Maybe a 20-pound bag of dog food? Maybe the cat litter? Maybe your KitchenAid that you want to pick up from the counter and put it on the countertop. Those things are heavy, right? So you need to be thinking about what it is that you want to be able to do to stay independent. Now, that comes with DOMS. DOMS is delayed onset muscle soreness. So it might not come without any kind of consequence. You might feel a little bit of soreness in your legs or your arms or whatever you were working out. It might not be that day. It might not be the next day. It might be 2 days later. But that should be a soreness of success, because that means you're getting stronger, and the next time you lift that amount of weight, it's gonna be easier for you. Now, aerobic activity, the one that's really been proven to slow or delay the progression of Parkinson's. It is recommended that you do it 3 to 5 times a week for 30 minutes. But what we've learned today, right, with all of our exercise breaks, is that we don't necessarily have to do it all at one time. You can break it up throughout the day. The key word here is intensity, okay? We need to be getting a heart rate max of between 80 and 85% is what the research shows. So getting your heart rate up to 60 or 65% is good, but 80 to 85% is even better. How do we track that? Well, a lot of people wear watches, right? An Apple Watch or a Garmin or something like that, and it tracks your heart rate. So if we know what your resting heart rate is, we can figure out what your heart rate max is so that you know where it needs to be when you're working out. The other is that we can just use this simple rate of perceived exertion scale. Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I haven't done anything, 10 being I can't take another step, I'm so exhausted. We need to be getting to that 7, 8, or 9 level, right? I'm not saying we have to keep it up there for 30 minutes. Again, we can do high intensity intervals, so we get it up, bring it back down. Get it up, bring it back down, right? There are different ways that we can increase intensity, so it might be the speed at which we do it. It might be the time that we already talked about a little bit. You might increase your weight. Those are all things. But know that you're probably going to be breathing a little bit harder and sweating, okay? So when you go to work out, wear your workout pants. Expect to have a little sweat on your brow. That's all things that are good. And again, it might fatigue you this afternoon, maybe not till tomorrow, right? It might be delayed a few days, but the more you keep practicing it, the easier it's gonna get, and you're gonna build up your endurance. So, and it's gonna help you sleep better. And a lot of times the side effect of Parkinson's is that we're not sleeping very well, right? Know that I'm not asking you today to get up and do all of this if you haven't been working out, right? We have to start somewhere. And intensity is individual based on the person. And it could be individual based on the activity. What one person's heart gets somebody's heart rate up is totally different than the other. So you just have to experiment with different activities that you like and enjoy and figure out which one can get your heart rate up. So we're gonna do a little demonstration here. Heather's gonna help me. So we're gonna look at complexity and intensity here. So a lot of people tell me they go out, my workout is a walk, and walking is excellent. She's gonna walk and look at the birds. Maybe she has her dog with her, right? So she's gonna have to stop so he can go pee. But she's kind of just meandering around. Stops, talks to her neighbor. Fantastic, hi, yeah, thank you. Now she's gonna put poles in her hands and she's gonna go for a walk. Big difference, right? So poles add complexity for one thing. You're having to control the pole, swing your arms. It's helping to make her walk faster, okay? So which one do you think she gets a better workout with? Poles, right? It's activating 90% of her body's muscles. So there's so many reasons. And do you have to have poles? No, but you need to go for a walk with a purpose, okay? It's gonna have a better outcome than just walking and seeing the birds. Something's better than nothing. So I'm not saying that just going out for a walk isn't great. Yes?
When she's out with the dog, she's got to bend over and pick up his stuff.
So then you're working on your balance too, right? Excellent, yes. All right, so I am all about getting people involved. I don't love seeing you guys sit there all the time, so we're gonna do a little experiment with you. So I want everybody to scoot back from the table. You can stay seated. And Heather's gonna demonstrate in the seated position for me. I don't have my timer, I'll just kinda. All right, so everybody's gonna sit there and we're just gonna start marching, just nice and gentle. Just picking up our feet. Good. Now we're gonna add some intensity. How do you think we do that? Faster? Maybe we're gonna swing our arms with it. And if you're up for it, you can even stand up, because that's gonna add intensity too, right? So stand up, march, get some big movements in. I heard some people say to me today that they are runners, so you could run in place if you're safe. Excellent, and stop. Could you tell a difference between our first exercises and seating, kind of just going a little bit? And now you got your heart rate up. Were you running, Jerry? Yes! All right, so Heather hates this slide, and it is really, really busy. But what I want you to pull from this slide is that each of the categories that we just talked about is a different circle here. And what you will notice is that most all of the circles overlap with each other, right? So what this means is that a lot of exercises don't have to be for one thing. And we've talked about that a little bit. So I asked you to get down on the ground to do stretching. But by getting on and off the ground, you're getting a strengthening workout too. So you're getting what I call a two-for exercise, right? So we're maximizing, or we're exercising smarter. So let's look at some of the evidence-based exercises that are out there for people with Parkinson's. LSVT big, power moves, rock steady boxing, dance for PD, urban pulling. Most all of them are going to incorporate at some time all of the different categories that you need to be hitting. So it is feasible for you to be able to do, like we said at the beginning, find something that you enjoy. Just make sure that when you're doing it, you're finding ways to be able to incorporate all of the different categories into it. Ooh. All right, how do we do this? Okay, let's talk about some tips for success and how we can overcome some of the barriers. So first we want to create goals, right? This is your journey. So what are your priorities for exercise? And there's lots and lots of factors going into this, so this is just breaking it down to the base level. Maybe you are that person that wants to be Jimmy Cho and you want to compete on American Ninja Warriors, or maybe you want to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So you are going to do whatever you can and work out all the time to be able to maximize the benefits that you get from exercise. But maybe you're that person that's like, I just want to be able to function and maintain what I have right now. And there is no judgment on any of these. They're all okay, right? Or maybe you're like, I love going to my exercise class. It's twice a week, and I love just going there so that I can talk to Joe, who sits next to me. Those are all, that's your priority, right? But we need to figure out what the goal is so that you can accomplish that. Maybe you're already going to exercise, but you realize today, oh, I'm not getting in the strength piece of it that I need. So how do I add that into my workouts? So we need to get a plan, okay? Schedule it into your calendar. Just like you were going to the doctor's, right? You don't cancel on your doctor. Don't cancel on yourself. Keep that in your schedule. Put it in there, okay? Just like the doctor asked you to take your medication, you wouldn't not take it if you didn't feel like it, right? You are going to take your medication when you should be taking it. So please, keep your schedule. Now, that doesn't mean that I understand some days are better than others, right? Some days you wake up and you're like, not today. I just ask you to have a plan B, right? So maybe today isn't as intense as we wanted it to be. Have some grace with yourself, try to move as much as you can, and then the next day work a little bit harder, right? So making sure that you have plan B for those days that maybe aren't quite as good as you want them to be. And then modify or progress your workouts, right? If you are walking 10 minutes at a really high clip and that becomes easy for you, then walk a little bit longer. Or if that 10-pound weight isn't heavy anymore, add some weight. But try to make it progressive because that's where the neuroplasticity really kicks in. How do you track this? You can track it either by an app. There's tons of apps out there that will help you keep track of whether you're getting your heart rate up high enough, whether you're working out long enough, or you can do it on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be fancy. And if you're like, I still don't even know where to start, right? Then you get a coach, which I love doing, right? You get your physical therapist involved, you get your personal trainer involved. Let them help you, right? We're here to be on your team. We want you to succeed. So we're going to help you make an individualized plan that is just for you, whatever your goals are, right? The other good thing about a coach is that sometimes they help with that motivation, right? A lot of the times, people with Parkinson's might have a little depression. They might have some apathy. So we're going to help be that little birdie in your ear, right, to get you motivated. And usually an outside source goes over a lot better than the care partner or the nag that they hear all the time. Not that you're a nag, but sometimes that's how people tell me they feel, right? So getting an outside person to come in and help can be beneficial. But just like she said this morning, you need to pick your own team. So it's not just about the coach, it's about your doctors, right? You get to pick your doctors. You get to pick your friends that you're hanging out with and let them support you instead of just trying to cover up Parkinson's. Everybody wants to help. Your care partners there, your loved ones. Create yourself this wonderful team around you. So here's a perfect example. This is Gary. He's 78 years old. He and his wife own a screen printing company that he still works at. And he volunteers for the VA and at swim meets being a timer. We started working together about 1.5 years ago, and we work out together 2 days a week. He says to me, these are a few of his comments to me, "You worked us pretty hard on Friday. My phone showed 2.2 miles, way more than I thought I could or would be able to do. I got on the ground to play with my great-granddaughter, not something I would have been able to do a year ago. I was able to do hours of yard work before the weather got bad, a little sore the next day, but it went away." And most recently, his comment to me was, "I went out golfing with my buddy the other day. My golf game's gotten a lot better, and I outdrove him. And he does not have Parkinson's, and it makes him mad." And I said, yeah, whew, that's what we want. And he also had the confidence to learn how to kayak this last year. And he said it's something that he's now going to be able to do with his son that he hasn't been able to do. So touches my heart. It's one of my I love hearing success stories and being around success stories. So in summary, exercise research empowers informed decisions. So talking about neuroplasticity, right, and the way that we're going to make those positive changes in our brains and our bodies, they can adapt, but we need challenge. We need intensity, we need repetition, and we need complexity. Exercise is medicine for people with Parkinson's. But it does matter what type you do. The dosage and the frequency is going to make a difference in the outcomes. So we want to maximize our exercise benefits, and it's never too late or too early. It's never too early or too late to start. So I'm going to leave this with you. Remember, it is your choice. It is your journey. The choice is yours. What is your big goal? In the back of the paper, there is a note section in the back of your program. I want you to write it down, right? It could be, I want to go to the zoo with my family. It could be that I want to go, like I said, climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Whatever your goal is, it's not too big or too small for you. It is your goal. And then let people help you achieve that. Again, this is my passion. That's why I started my company, was to help people achieve their goals. And I actually have a retreat coming up in September that I'm super excited about. My company is Joy Explorations, like Daisy said at the beginning, and I have a booth right outside these doors right here, and I would love to talk to any of you. And I feel extremely blessed to have been introduced to Heather. She's been so fun to present with, and I thank the WPA for letting us speak today. And I hope you guys all got something from this. Thank you.